Hi, my name is Hannah McKelma, and I am a special education major at Dakota State. I will be going over the process and services for special education and the different services that schools should provide. The first thing we'll be talking about is early learning for students with disabilities. This covers the advantages of early childhood education. All children with disabilities should have access to inclusive, high-quality early childhood programs, which is totally true. Some of the different advantages are an increase in vocabulary development and cognitive abilities. The students in these early childhood programs are surrounded by other students and teachers who increase their vocabulary by having conversations with them, going over different words and terms in the classroom. Another advantage is behavioral and social improvements. They see how students should act in a classroom. They also see how other students act. And the last one there is the economic benefits for the community. If you go to this website, you'll see that it talks about the different resources that they have here. It talks about the policies for the early childhood programs and the recommendations that they have. You can look through that. The next thing is these are the different legislative measures that are taken for special education today. The first one being education for all handicapped children, which happened in 1975. This was the very first special education law to help students with physical or mental disabilities. It makes special services available to them, and it makes sure that schools and teachers are maintaining fair and appropriate services for these students. Number two is Individuals with Disability Education Act, which happened in 1990. This is actually just a revision of the first one you'll see there, which means that the needs that students receive appropriate at the least restrictive environment, which means they're involved in the classroom as much as possible. The third one is the No Child Left Behind Act in 2001, which called for all the schools to be accountable for these students, whether they had a disability or not, and to provide them with the education. Number four is something you'll hear quite often called an individualized education program. This is also referred to as an IEP, which is when parents and teachers create a plan or evaluation on your child's current academic status, and it talks about different goals and objectives that they can have, and where the student is going to be best suited in the classroom or out of the classroom. It talks about their setting, the placement, and once your child reaches age 16, they go through transitional services with you. The last one is students with disability and post-secondary schools. This your child is not required to go to a post-secondary school, and it's not required to be free, but they do provide public education for these students. It just depends on different colleges. For the post-secondary, they don't offer the free education, like I said, but they will offer different accommodations for students with disabilities once they reach that post-secondary education. Categories of disabilities, if you watch this video, it'll go through.
Hello and welcome to Teachings in Education,
the
14 categories of students with disabilities for classroom educators, teachers, and others. In this video, all 14 categories average general intelligence.
So the first one is this intellectual disability that you'll hear about.
Existing with deficits in adaptive behavior. Children with this disability have an IQ below 70. Next up, this refers to a child with
deaf and blindness is the next one that they'll talk about. Both hearing or visual disabilities. Specific learning disability is one that you'll see a lot in schools.
Psychological processes and the imperfect ability to think, speak, read, write, and do math. Students have.
So you can go through that, and it'll show you the 14 different categories that a child could be listed under. I'll let you watch that on your own time. The next slide is going to talk about your rights as a parent. In South Dakota, we offer this book right here called the South Dakota Parental Rights and Procedural Safeguards. The teachers in your school are required to give you a copy of this every time you have a meeting if you don't already have one. So the parental rights amendment that was put in place goes through these 5 different steps. It just talks about